Okay, I'm back here with the second part, or maybe even more parts, who never knows, with Chris Hamilton, DJ Ham Radio. Welcome back, I guess.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So in the first part, we just talked more about, or we talk a lot about the outdoorsy aspects that you dabble in, like such as bouldering, hiking, and I guess you're into marathon running now? Is that a recent thing?
Yeah, and skiing as well, yeah.
Oh, really? Skiing, okay.
Yeah.
And those are all things you can do in Vancouver, in this great city, if you can afford to live here anyways. It's a whole different issue for a whole different podcast, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
Very sensitive topic.
Yeah, it is, especially nowadays. But so going back to when I met you back in when we were going to school on the mountain, San Fraser, which I think you could hike. I don't know.
There's trails around there. Yeah.
Oh, cool. See, amazing, right? Obviously we hit it off. We talked about a whole bunch of things like film, games, movies, whatever. But I know also like you're pretty knowledgeable when it comes to like board games, right? And the thing is, what I've noticed about board games, I don't know if it's a recent thing, at least when we were going to school and university, that board games just started kind of blowing up and coming back, and it wasn't just about Monopoly or Candyland anymore. It was just like, oh, what's the Settlers of Catan game that's going around, right? Do you know anything about that, or how the resurgence?
I don't know maybe the timing of it, or like I think there may have been a few big European games that kind of came over that maybe like Catan, obviously, and Carcassonne, and there's a few others. I think like when these games came over, I think that kind of changed people's opinion about it. But in Germany, like board games are always kind of big.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not the best expert on why that is, but over there, like they've kind of, I don't know, they've been board gaming for a long time, and so like a lot of the best games are still coming out of Europe right now because.
Really?
Yeah, it's interesting, and like they have their own kind of flavor of board games too. Like they tend to be a little more non-confrontational. Like you notice like Catan is not. If you wanted to like compare it to Monopoly or something, Monopoly is very confrontational, right? Like.
Is it?
Yeah, like, well, the whole point of the game of Monopoly is to bankrupt all the other players playing the game, right? By basically owning all the properties and getting them to land on
your space that you own.
Exactly. Okay. So, where Catan, like, there is some conflict and interaction between the other players, but it's not. It's more of a race than a direct, confrontation. Like, you can block people, you can steal cards from them, but it's not.
The objective is to the settlement points, right?
Yeah, it's a build, right?
It's it's to fill a set of conditions.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah. Sorry, you get 10 points is the victory condition for Catan. Yeah.
Right. As opposed to where like in Monopoly, where like I bankrupt you, you have no money, I win.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Last time I checked, and a lot of people don't know actually how to properly play Monopoly. That's kind of a funny thing. But yeah, no, it's the same with Risk. Like Risk is like eliminate everyone off the board.
The game of global domination.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with those kind of games, but it was when you see the Euro games, like they tend to be like, oh, let's who can just do a thing the best, right? Like who can build up like an empire or build up something.
There's no direct confrontation in that regard.
Yeah. And there's definitely like interaction. Like that's I think a very important thing about board games. Like some
or just games in general, right?
Yeah,
it's
if you're playing with people, you want to play with people, right?
Yeah, you don't want Candyland to play the game for you, right?
Exactly.
And do you think that's what constitutes like a good board game, at least a multiplayer board game, anyways?
Yeah, I definitely. You want to make decisions, right? That's like you mentioned Candyland, like. You're not really, if you're rolling dice, you're not really making decisions a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And where like, I guess with Carcassonne or something, like you actually pick out a tile, like it's still random, but you have like options of where to place it, and you can strategize.
Right. So there's an element of where like your decisions impact the flow of the the activity or the game that you're playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kind of like the resurgence of these new board games are, right?
Yeah, I think there's like a few games that just like I don't know, change that opinion, because I think if you ask a lot of people, even nowadays, like what are the best board games? Like if you asked like a general population, they would probably say Risk and Monopoly still, because that's just they're so pervasive in culture. Like everyone's grown up playing Monopoly and Risk. It's kind of funny if anything, but wow, that's a sheep falling down. Sorry. Yeah, but like that, I kind of cringe when I hear that a little bit, because like I think there's just so many new games that are just so more nuanced or simple, or just I don't know, they're more interesting.
Again, that's the thing, is like they're, I guess, like multifaceted, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to like you roll dice, you move you move your piece. It's not like that anymore, right?
Yeah.
You have a whole bunch of board games nowadays. Like there are simple ones where they're just cards, right? Like just like a deck of cards and you work with them. Or there could be anything from like you have a billion pieces to work with, right? And it's like it's super intricate.
You could be there for the whole weekend.
Yeah, and, you know, that could be like a good time. It could be a great time, right? Like, and that's the thing with board games nowadays, that it's really like evolved to this point, right?
There's variety that,
exactly,
allows for that.
And I mean, yeah, like learning how to play a board game, I think, is always the most.
Yeah.
So when you have a board games night, I think it's important to strike a balance between, you know, being able to play the game and like learning the rules of the game, right? I don't know, what's your stance on that?
For me, like I definitely feel when I bring a game to a board games night, or I host a board games night, I definitely should have read the manual. I've been in situations where people have brought out games, ripped off the plastic.
They just bought it.
They haven't even looked at it, and they've had it for weeks or something.
And
they're like, anyone know how to play? And so like that's a very frustrating situation for everyone involved. Like it's because then it takes time to read a manual, and then you got to explain it to everyone, right? You can't
and the more players are, the more possible confusion there could be.
Yeah, and I mean some games are really simple, and like maybe they only have one page of instructions, and that okay, maybe you could probably learn that right on the go, and that's a good thing in a lot of ways. But
intuitiveness,
like when you have a rule book that's maybe up to 30 pages,
maybe it's good to know. And it can be a bit onerous to kind of go through it yourself at any times, like just to play like one or two times, right? It's like, oh man, I invested so much time and money into this one board game that I'll probably never play again. Right?
No, exactly. It's and that's I think a big thing for me is like I have a lot. I tend to like the longer games actually, but it's hard to get people into them because sometimes the explain the rules can be like 30 minutes of time, and people get tired and frustrated, and they're already lost interest in the game before even playing it, because it's just this
it's super complex.
You gotta sit down and learn these things, and it's frustrating. And there's things now that like this ways, like it's definitely an art form explaining a game. Like there's definitely
okay, I never thought of it that way.
Like there's definitely better ways of doing it than others. Like when I explain games, like I try to like be very organized about it, and like kind of say the important things first, and maybe reiterate on them, and like
the finer details later.
Like maybe leave out some of the details, but like kind of get the core game in there, and maybe like some strategies, and if I have time, little theming, because sometimes the theming is really important in a game. So I maybe even I'll start with that. I'll say like, you're a settler, like say I was saying Catan, right? You're like the settler in this new land, and you're building settlements, and you want your group of people to
flourish.
To be the dominant culture in this island or whatever. I don't know.
whatever Catan goes by.
Yeah, I mean Catan's maybe not the strongest theme game, but there's definitely some that have very thick themes, and
it gives you like a reason as to why you're playing the game in the first place, right?
Exactly.
It explains the whole flow and objectives and what you're fighting for, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of people like playing D&D, and like for them, like having that thick flavor and theme is really important to them, and maybe it's less so in board games, but it does still matter. And I think like a perfect board game makes you feel like you're the thing that it's trying to model, right? Like it
really immerses you in the experience.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it is important. But there's a lot of, for explaining the rules, like there's a lot of different things. Like I try to let them fiddle with the pieces, because if they're fiddling with like the little tokens, and sometimes like the things in the board games look really cool, and they're
totally.
really fiddly. They're not looking at their phones, or maybe it allows them to focus a little bit more, even though they're like fiddling. They're
they're
still into
engaged in like the activity that's presented to them, right?
Yeah, they're not so like they're a little more occupied, I guess. Yeah, I don't know how to put it, but yeah, there's a bunch of these things. Like there's a very famous like website for board games called Shut Up and Sit Down, which
cool.
does like reviews and podcasts and all these things. Sorry, I shouldn't be mentioning other podcasts.
No, I always say Joe Rogan has an awesome podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you should always experience new things, right?
Right.
And yeah, no, I think they got a really good sense of humor about it. Like they do these reviews, and the reviews themselves are just interesting. Like like they do these skits at the beginning of them. But anyway,
is it called Shut Up and Sit Down?
Shut Up and Sit Down. Yeah.
And this is a YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's by these like British guys. Yeah, there was like 3 of them. One of them actually lives in Vancouver now.
Oh, maybe we should. I'll go look for him now.
Yeah, his name's Paul. So yeah, no,
we'll go look for him.
But yeah, no, they I think they're some of the best when it comes to reviews, because they know how to go through all the game and everything, and
but do you think
it
it also
entertaining? But yeah, sorry.
Do you think it kind of covers like the spirit of board gaming, like as in like just sitting down with a couple friends or even strangers and just having a good time and just like losing yourself in the moment?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think like it's a neat thing about games too, that I feel like they bring out a part of your personality that you don't normally show people, and for good or bad. Like there's definitely bad aspects of that, but I think that it especially when you don't know people very well, I think it's a good way of breaking
the ice,
people out of their breaking the ice, getting them out of their shell, because they're like, I want to win, you
can bring up the competitiveness or the cooperativeness, depending on what you're doing, right?
Exactly. Or sometimes people are not super competitive, but maybe they like goofing around and some
having a good time, right?
That. Yeah. So I definitely feel like I kind of get that. And
okay, and really are able to like capture that spirit of like conveying like this is like board gaming, right? This is like all the things you can experience from it, right? There's no real like no one's gonna tell you to feel this way, right? But it's just like if a board game fulfills the objective of like engaging you, then it's already good, right?
Exactly.
At least I like to think so.
Yeah, and I think like what's good or bad could be a bit subjective and a bit
of course,
a bit concrete as well. But yeah, like I feel like some people like games that other people don't like, and like I definitely find that like there's some games I love and I can't get people to play them. Like they just don't want to play them. And
you gotta find some like I don't want to say like-minded, but like people who are open to such whatever game it is, right? So I just want to bring that up. What do you think about games that are just like modern board games that are just like it's god awful?
Like what do you mean? Like
do you have any like ones that you just like despise? Cards Against Humanity. What?
Oh yeah, actually I'm not the biggest fan of that one.
Yeah, neither am I.
I mean I feel that I've definitely had my fun with that game, but
totally.
It's definitely some games definitely last longer than others. There's some games that like you can play hundreds of times, and there's some that are great for like 4 times. And
like this was fun the first time.
Yeah, and I feel like that one like and maybe it changes if you get more cards and you mix it
so
up
like more expansion sets.
Yeah, like maybe that might reinvigorate it, but like there's only so many times I can laugh at pixelated bukkake, right? Like
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's like it can be a little frustrating if the people's sense of humor, like if your group's sense of humor doesn't quite click with yours, like you'll notice that someone's racking up all the cards because they're good at, they know how to make certain people laugh. So it's not a bad game.
But there's a skill in that, right?
Yeah,
it's really like figuring out how to like pick at people, right?
Yeah, play at people's
funny bone.
Exactly. So it's not a bad game, but it's definitely, it was a really popular game, so everyone wants to play it, and then for some people it's really
I mean
outdone its welcome, right?
Like a certain guy that put it, it's like it's not really creative in that aspect, how it's like the game Cards Against Humanity, right? It's like you're kind of given these things, right? And they're not, I mean, yeah, some of them can be funny, but like it's like you said, like you don't laugh so many times at any card, right?
Yeah, exactly.
is there any other games that come to mind? Like, which like completely random games, as in like non-interactive or Candyland?
There's well, yeah, no, like I've never actually played Candyland, but
yeah, let's keep it that way.
It's like a snakes and ladders kind of game. The game plays you basically. But one that's a little more modern, I guess, I dislike is actually Werewolf.
Oh, like the pen and paper game.
Yeah, like it's. I mean, they sell it in boxes now, and
what? Why?
Like you get little cards that you give people, but it frustrates me because like you could play with like 15 people and someone gets knocked out in the first round without even playing.
And then yeah, exactly.
And it's I feel that's just so no in terms of a game or in terms of everyone having fun, it's just so wrong. Like I feel because
the game could last hours beyond that point, and you're waiting for them to finish, right? And then like everyone loses interest. And
yeah,
of course, maybe there's like maybe we're playing it wrong. Maybe there's a way to enjoy it. I don't know, but
yeah, like I think there's variants where you add like certain cards that add a little more deduction in it. But I still think the fact that I think elimination is not games. A great. Yeah, it's not a great feature for a game. I think unless the elimination happens really near the end and like it's not, or it's a short enough game that it's not a big deal. Like I think like Coup, which is a pretty popular deduction game and lying game, that game has has it as a mechanic. That's the word I was looking for.
Right,
a mechanic, but it's the game's only run like 10 minutes. Like it's not a big deal if you get knocked out, and often you can sit there and kind of laugh like haha, you got to never guessed. Yeah, right, exactly. You know something now that they don't know, and
like so, a funny sympathy.
Yeah, and I think Werewolf kind of just drags on too long with that,
right?
And there's not enough game there. Like people get
there's an element of creativity in the way you try to go through questions and like conversation dialogue just to sort things out. But yeah, like you said, like when you're knocked out. But so the variation is like was it Resistance?
Yeah, Resistance or Avalon.
Yeah, Avalon. Yeah,
is it's like I'd say almost the same game, but you just don't have that elimination.
So you're always involved throughout
exactly.
Right.
I mean, you can kind of in that game you can kind of screw up, and if you get outed early as someone who's like a villain, you might not be able to do much, but you can still partake in this discussions. And sometimes you still get a vote. You get all these things. So it's I don't think it's you're still involved. So I think that's like or I think that's like a better version of the game.
A better version, right?
Yeah. And I think even Coup, like I like Coup a lot, but there's another game that's very similar with hidden roles called Masquerade, which I think is even better because it doesn't have the elimination. Because even though the games are short, I think it puts a lot of tension, But sometimes it's a good thing too. I concede that too.
Yeah, and that's something like it's definitely like a fun one to kind of bring every now and then. It's like I don't know, like deduction elimination game. I guess that's the genre of it now. I guess that's what we're calling it now.
Like
based off
intrigue.
Intrigue. Yeah, and I think it's really it brings out people's like creative side. I mean, it could.
Yeah, it gets people talking, and I think that's a very strong point of those games. Is like you can break the ice because you're like you were on that. You get like these like funny interactions and you're like you were one of them,
and it's like you said earlier, it's like you get to see the different sides of people's personality, right? Whether it's for like winning the objective of the game or if it's just like this is how they actually are, right? You never really know, right? And the interaction is there and the group dynamics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you feel about the more complex board games then? Like, what was that one we played the other day with the 5 spinning gears?
Zulkin, yeah. It's it's like an Aztec themed game where you have gears.
It was like a beautiful board. I was like, all these pieces are like, it's amazing.
I don't even think of that as a complex one.
Oh, really?
I mean, mechanically, yes. That's called a worker. Like the genre of that game is called a worker placement.
Worker placement, yes.
And it's that is something I definitely I struggle with because like I tend to want these more complex games, but it's it grows increasingly harder to find a group to play them, because these kind of games too are the ones that you almost want to play multiple times, because the first time is kind of almost
the learning
run, yeah, and but it's 2 hours long, so
you don't have that much,
yeah, and it's hard like teaching this game to people every single time. But when like I remember that particular game, like I played actually with my sister and her ex-boyfriend at the time, or boyfriend at the time, sorry. Anyway, yeah, and we played it a few times, and so we got really nuanced about how we played it. We learned the game a lot better. It was really fun. We didn't have to like sit there and explain it every single time.
You knew how the game worked at that point.
So it's and there's even more complex ones, or there's now ones that are even require multiple play sessions, like like they're called legacy games, and I'll talk about those in a sec.
Okay.
But yeah, no, like Twilight Imperium is probably there's a few of them, but like Twilight Imperium is one of the more popular long games, which like people often joke you probably need a whole weekend. You might as well bring your sleeping bags over.
Is that true?
It can be true depending on how many people are playing, and it's kind of this like it's called a 4X game, so it's like explore, exterminate, exploit. There's another X.
Okay.
But it's like you're kind of like this space empire, and you're trying to like conquer planets, and like. So
there's a lot of dimensions to this game.
Yeah, there's because there's like you have like a tech tree, and like a you have like combat with the spaceships, where you build spaceships, and like you have like a diplomacy, and like you can portray people, and there's.
This is like Civilizations, the board game.
Kind of, yeah. It's on its 4th edition now, so it's
a
very popular game, but it's also really hard to bring out, and you need like the right people, like something
people who probably already know how to play it,
know how to play it, or are willing to put the time in,
right?
And so, sorry, yeah, no, like that one's I've always been interested in that game, but I'm too afraid to buy it and then never, because I have other games I've rarely played for the same reasons, and that are nowhere near as long. Like 2 hours is already like I find like it's getting kind of long for a game, and a lot of my games do take 2 hours or 3 hours, and it's some people can like lose interest real quick, so you gotta have the right group.
But you go find Paul.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I was saying the legacy games are like a whole other level on that.
They take multiple play sessions? As in, like, what do you mean by that?
Like, basically, it's you play a game in one session.
Okay.
But the game changes each session. So it basically, like the first one to do it actually was a Risk variant. It was called Risk Legacy, and basically you would play a game of Risk, and things would happen in the Risk game, and it would affect the board. And so, like, you might get a Sharpie and write, like, over Florida, like, that it's, irradiated or something the first time someone uses a nuclear weapon. And you would have card packages in the game that you wouldn't open until a certain point had been reached in one of your games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then you would open this, and they would change the game. And so it was a kind of game that you want the same people playing it, because, there's kind of a...
It's a campaign.
It's like a yeah, exactly. It's a campaign. And so... you want to kind of see where it goes, right? There's like spoilers. Like I know, like the Risk game had a hidden card underneath the like plastic inserts.
What?
Yeah, that was hidden underneath.
Do you know what's on it?
I don't know, and I don't want to know. I've never played that legacy game, but yeah, like it's like this card is like a big deal, and it would change how the game plays, and
it's almost a mystery, right? It's like, what is on that card? Like, I must know. And it kind of drives you to like get to that end, right?
Yeah, exactly. And see where it goes, and the really big ones right now are there's Pandemic, which you may have played before, right?
That's a good game.
There's a Pandemic Legacy out now.
Okay.
And there's actually 2. There's like a season 1 and a season 2.
Really?
Yeah, and they're apparently really good. I've never played them, but they're very popular, and so I imagine like it's the same thing. Like you're playing Pandemic, which is a game about like curing diseases and
and the outbreaks where they happen and stuff, and flying all over the world and taking care of the the virus.
Yeah, and it's a co-op game too, and so like sometimes all of you lose and sometimes all of you win, and so these things affect the next game or the next few games. And
cool.
And I don't actually know. There's a lot of different things, and like I've heard people talking about it, and I'm like, oh, I'm not there at that. I'm not at that point in the game yet. So don't tell me it's a spoiler. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
So I didn't even know about like. Is this like a new thing? These legacy games or?
Yeah. I mean, they've been around for like the last few years, but they've been really picking up steam over
They're really prevalent
the last
in the past.
like 2-3 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is like even when like they weren't around when we were in school. I mean, they might have been, but
the Risk one has been around for like 5 years, I think, 5-6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like they weren't around when we were going in school and
somewhat. I mean, there was some. Yeah. It's taken a while for them to start like
really picking
building on that mechanic, but now that they have like Pandemic Legacy, I think was one of the ones that really went away with it, and then there's this one that came out now, which is like the most popular game at the moment, at least on the board game sites, called Gloom Haven.
Gloom Haven.
Yeah, and I think it's like the closest thing to a D&D campaign in a board game.
Okay.
Yeah, because you kind of it's this huge box.
Okay.
And you get like you play like either 1 to 4 people, and you have like a map, and like as you go to different places, you put stickers on the map of like the locations.
Oh.
Yeah, and so like you kind of like, it has this like big like quest layout, and, and like you have characters that will die, and then you get new characters later on. Like, so you have like certain boxes that like start, or like the starter classes, and then eventually get new ones. And
really?
And you almost don't want to open up everything in this box, because it's like a huge box of like goodies that you want to find out as you come to them,
through
right?
a narrative, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Gloomhaven, gotta write that down.
It's super popular. Like,
is it like $1 million though?
It's like over $100. I think it might be $150 right now
for the starter, or like, is there only one starter set?
There's one. Yeah, it's just one box.
Oh, okay.
That's the nice thing, is a lot of those kinds of games tend to like, maybe like they'll be like, oh, buy the expansion to get the next part of the story or something. But no, this is all like one kind of
cool
campaign in a box. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I've heard a lot of people say really good things about it, but I need to find a good group.
I mean, like, with like that kind of game, the legacy games, like how so the thing is, like, yeah, it's like finding a good group that's committed to the cause, right? And it's like has like a somewhat semi-regular availability, right, to be able to go through such a campaign. Of course, it can be hard, right, with just like, consider how old we are now.
Yeah.
But also like just like life happens and stuff. Yeah. But how long do you expect, like, with these legacy games to like ride out for, like, for one to reach the end? What do you think, or what have you heard?
I know the Gloom Haven is really long. Like, I know a lot of people aren't finished it yet. It really depends. Like, I've heard some people, like, they'll just play. They got it, and they literally got their group together like almost every day. I guess they have that kind of time to do that, and and they enjoyed it that much, so they were just like boom, 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 like kept going through it really like quickly. But I think they're definitely, a lot of them have more than like 10 sessions in a game, and so and like in terms of Gloomhaven, I think there is a bit of replayability in there too. Like, I think you can buy, like, replace the stickers, and so you can like peel them off or something like that, and like when it comes to the map and little thing, you can do things that so that you don't kind of
one and done it.
Yeah, because like I like when I mentioned Risk Legacy, they actually, I think one of the mechanics is like right on the board with a Sharpie.
Yeah,
so it's
like that's
permanent.
Yeah,
which is kind of for me, like, as a board game owner, I'm like, ugh,
exactly.
I don't want to mark it.
Yeah,
but at the same time, you're like, damn, you're like. You're making this thing yours, like, it's unique, right? And
your experience.
Yes. And I think you, like, with Risk Legacy, at least, you could actually play the board afterwards. Like, it was like a unique board.
Oh, and you tried to play Risk, but it's like you can't, because like it's all like messed up because of what you did.
Yeah, so it'll be like a different. You could have this board that you play after. I mean, it wouldn't be as nearly as fun as building that board.
When again, the journey destination thing, right?
Mm-hmm. But,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, for me, like, I don't get to play as much as I want, so I definitely don't. I definitely feel like it is worth the money, even though the game is kind of, in a way,
Risk Legacy or Gloom Haven?
Disposable, like, because you're sorry, like,
Risk Legacy or Gloom Haven, or both?
I guess both. Any like kind of legacy game, like, because I feel like, you may not actually get to play it, that much anyway. So it's kind of I mean,
Yeah,
like most
that's very
board
true.
games, right? You know, it's so. You know, I think it's kind of worth putting the money in because, like, I mean, most games are, you know, they only have a certain lifespan anyway, right?
Like Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's exciting. I definitely I haven't tried a legacy game yet, but I'm excited by the notion of it.
Yeah, like just the idea that it's there, right? And you go through like this experience with your friends or whatever, right? No, it's certainly the first I've ever heard of such a genre in board gaming, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I definitely have to look that up later.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, like in this city, I know that there's a lot of gatherings nowadays, like a lot of board game meetups, right? How do you feel like are there a lot of them now, or like is this like a huge? I'm
not the most experienced, but I definitely know there's like the board game store I go to, Starlight Citadel, definitely does like I think game night or something like that.
Do they? Because I thought they were just like a warehouse.
They're not. Oh, they have a store now.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
times have changed.
Yeah. So I used to just go to the warehouse, pick up my game after I ordered it online.
And be on your.
Now I can browse in the store and potentially spend more money.
Yeah, genius. Yeah, so for those who don't know, starlightcitadel.com, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah,
and check out their board games. They got a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, the prices are pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, they're quite reasonable. They're probably like the best place to buy.
Mm-hmm. And if you live in Vancouver, you can buy pick up the game there instead of if you order it online, you can not have the the shipping,
right?
And then pick it up there and not have to pay for it. So it's
cool.
Yeah, it's a little bit cheaper in that sense. Plus, you got the big selection and the price of an online store, so it's kind of nice.
Where is the store located now?
It's on Main Street. Sorry.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Main Street. I didn't know that.
Yeah, 13th. So.
Okay, so they have a storefront.
Yeah. It's kind of in a basement, but
oh, is that their storefront now?
They kind of, I think it's
like the front door, right? Not just the back. You meet a guy.
No, it's not that warehouse.
Not that.
No, that they've moved. I think the warehouse has moved with them too, right? So it's
cool.
The store is the warehouse now, but which makes sense. I mean, if you're gonna
you might as well have your wares, right?
Yeah, you can.
On you.
Yeah, you can show people what you got. So, it's kind of down a little stairway and underneath. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'll look that up if I ever want to pick up any more board games, because. Again, board game nights I think have been around for ever, since the 90s, maybe even 80s. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely a lot more popular now, and I find my challenge is still getting over that stigmatism of Risk and Monopoly. I feel like there's a lot of people have had horrible experiences with those games. A Risk game that is, overstayed its welcome. Where because it can go on a really long time and not be fun.
Yes.
And so I definitely, or there's people that are afraid I don't know a game, and so they're afraid to join a session because they don't want to be, they don't want to hold people back, or they don't, which is not the case. We can explain the game, and it's
it's all about the gathering, right? The experience. It's just I don't say it's board gaming is a social lubricant, because it definitely can be, but it's also just it's something to do with your friends, right? An experience, right? Especially with these legacy games now, right? Even more so, right, than ever. But having board game nights now is just what are you talking about? You want to hang out and play Monopoly in the basement? No, we're playing modern board games, right? These. It's kind of crazy how things have turned, though, right?
Yeah.
And you get so many board games nowadays that, we were talking about the deduction elimination games before, right? There's a lot of the same kind of base game, but just with different rules and different little intricacies. I don't know. How do you feel about that? There's just there's so many games of the same genre, but how do you know which ones are the one that's right for you?
Yeah, I think that it is really hard to get an idea of what which one is a good game, right? And which one is just another, because I used to have all you have is that box, right? And I used to think say a game that's based on a movie or something would be not good, because I've had previous experiences from just expecting tie-in products to not be very good, but but there's been cases where that's not true, right?
Really?
Like the Battlestar Galactica game is a really well known kind of intrigue game where you know, and it's really well loved, but you know, looking at the box, you would be like, oh, this is just, you know,
a Monopoly game, but with like
yeah, or something. Yeah, so it's yeah, like it's definitely hard, like looking at a box and like, oh, what is this? Like they'll have little things, like they'll say how much it plays, like how many people it plays, and like how long it plays for, and like what age group, which doesn't really affect us.
No,
but
1 to 80, all right.
But it's still nowhere near enough. Like you just have no idea how a game plays until you play it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know some stores do demos, right? They might have games that you can like you can get the store owner to bring it out, and like you can have like a test playthrough. So that's one way, or you can go on YouTube, and some people
do
actually
your research.
Will play out games for you just to see what you're getting into, which is nice. And like you said, do the research. I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, it's like a book, right? You can't always tell. I mean, I guess
can't always judge a game by its cover.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's also games too that like improve on like a previous game. So like there's this one game called Splendor, which is kind of a light game about you basically are buying like diamond mines and gem mines, and you kind of like build this engine where you like are able to create like enough gems to build more gem mine things, and then eventually get the most points to win the game. But there's a new game that just came out that kind of does a similar thing, but it kind of iterates on it, and it's it's like a lot of people are saying it's like the Splendor Killer, which is called Sentry. It's yeah, and so like I think there's a lot of some new games are improving on some of the older games too, so it's an evolving thing.
And then eventually you'll get to that product where like this is the one that's right for me. It's like just the middle, maybe it's like the newest one. I don't know what it is, but it's always also good to find a group to play with as well, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you really want to get into like Gloom Haven, or was it the space one that you just mentioned?
Oh,
Twilight Imperium.
Twilight Imperium.
Yeah, right. It's like it's all about finding the right people to go through this, right? And Vancouver's a big city, lots of people. I'm sure you have lots of friends by now, and you know who's into what, So, just it's all about your local community, the people that and the networking, right?
Like I know, like when it came to board games, like you get introduced often in school or like in a workplace. Like I at my workplace, I'm trying to push for a board games night after work.
Hey man, there you go. And board games and beer.
Yeah, but there's also I mean, I think that's the best way to get exposed to it, at least. But there's also like meetup.com is a good place to.
Is it actually called meetup.com?
Yeah.
No, it's not. Really?
No, well, I mean, it does other things in board games, right?
Okay.
They're all about meetup.
Okay, that's literally meetup.com. Okay.
Yeah, they're all about meeting, and so like there's all sorts of different ones, and we could talk forever about that. But like, there's groups on there that do board game meetups, and I think there's even people maybe even post in the stores like, looking for
a campaign, like I wanted to run a D&D next campaign, and then you would look for people. Oh, interesting. Yeah. And the thing is, like, with the digital age we are now, it's even easier to find people online to do such things, right? It's like same thing with the hiking thing, right? It's like the spread of information is super fast. You can find people with looking for the same thing you are sometimes. And board games just happen to be a thing we do now in the city, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, when I was over in Jakarta, Indonesia, when I was living there, right, board games are actually starting to become a thing there too.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I was like, wait, no way.
Awesome.
I mean, like, board games are not just like a North American, phenomenon, right? Or even European, I guess, because that's where it kind of originated with this resurgence of these new games. But like, it's widespread nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear it's big in Japan.
Yeah, I think board gaming is also big there too now, right?
Yeah.
Like, I went over there and saw like D&D books. I was like, wait, what the? No way! Like, this culture is so widespread, right? And again, it's also like, games are meant to be fun, right? They're meant to be meant to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Sometimes not always the the end result.
But for the most part, they are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a good time now. It's like we're on the kind of eve of new board games where they're not just Monopoly or
Yeah.
Candyland.
Yeah,
Right?
They've been calling it the golden age the last few years of board games. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? So, maybe we'll look on this podcast 20 years from now and see where we're at. But yeah, it does. It takes away from the kind of I can't. No, I don't know if I can pronounce the word like autonomous. Like, let's say, for example, you play a video game, right? There are things that are done for you.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, it's a different medium altogether.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you think of a game, you think of some kind of interactivity, right?
Yeah.
Or objective or challenge. But board games is a way to keep it like mechanical, right?
Yeah. I think like there's definitely advantages to both, right? Like I think the thing about video games is, like you said, it does a lot of things for you. Like some problems some board games have is they have too much bookkeeping. And, you're like, I gotta increase this move these tokens here, do that, and like a video game just does that for you. You have a complex system and the game manages that for you, and you just worry about your character, right?
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about the world. And so I think there's like
there's a balance.
There's a balance there.
Or like pluses and minuses, right?
And I like it. Yeah, like I think board games provide some things and video games provide a different thing. And
they do.
And like I think that there's room for both, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't think they're competing with each other at all. So
I mean, you can also have like video games that are board games, right? And you can do different things like that, right? Within them. Can't think of too many off the top of my head right now.
Well, there's definitely video game.
There's Risk on the Game
ports.
Boy.
Yeah, Risk. Like there's a lot of games on Steam now that are ports of it, like
of board games.
Of board games. Port sounds like a weird word to use there. But
you're porting a board game into like a digital media, right?
Yeah.
But like, again, different medias altogether. Games are games.
Yeah.
Board games can be enjoyed with your friends and family, people you know, people you don't know.
They kind of take up like a space that, because I do one area of video games I kind of see kind of shrinking a little bit in the last few years is like the couch multiplayer.
Yeah, I miss couch co-op. That used to be fun.
Yeah, like, and I think Nintendo is definitely trying to push back into that zone.
I hope so.
Like the Switch is, I think, actually a very much aimed at that, because like you can bring it. It's easy to bring around, but it's also like it's very much made to be
play with your friend.
Yeah. So I think, but I felt like board games were kind of taking that for a while. Like that was
that space.
That space, because like I felt there was such a huge focus on online multiplayer in the last 10, 15 years. Right?
So true.
And like now, even like some of the big games that were known for like, their couch multiplayer, like I think Halo is probably the biggest example. Was like it was a big game for just playing with your friends at your
just having fun, sitting down. Yeah.
And now they've removed that feature. And
is Halo no longer couch co-op?
Yeah, the latest Halo 5 is only online multiplayer.
Really? Oh, yeah. That's so weird.
And there could be various reasons for that, and I don't exactly know why they did that, but it seems more of a cost issue. But for me, I was very disappointing, because like I want to, like, it was so many good times, like just sitting on the couch and and
oh, okay, yeah,
having a few laughs, and so I think that's where maybe board games
help kind of
have filled that spot. But I think now like I think it's starting to come back again. Like I think
slowly
Nintendo's kind of in that zone, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think buy a Switch now. But yeah, no, board games are great. They're fun. Find the right one for you. I guess we'll wrap it up with that. Do you have any last things you want to say? Like, you have a Twitter account or something, or like anything to follow you on, or
I'm
anything
not
you want?
Social media guy.
Okay,
I'm a ghost.
You exist in like some form. Maybe you're just me impersonating another person on the voice, and I'm actually just talking to myself. I don't know. But any last words like about board games or hiking you want to really mention?
I don't know. I mean, I just
or just anything.
I mean, I feel, at least with board games, I feel it's also a good thing that like brings a large group of people together. Like, you know, I don't see it as a divisive thing.
Okay.
You know, I see it as more like I feel a lot of like especially when I bring a lot of the lighter games like Masquerade or Coup or something like that to like a we had like yesterday I had TGIFF, which is like a, you know, just like an after work party at the first Friday of the month.
Oh,
and
okay.
you know, we often play like some like board games, and like there's a lot of people there that like don't really play games, and like they, you know, and so like we, you know, sometimes we'll kind of nudge them,
Like, hey, you should come join us.
to join, yeah, and they have a good time, and like it's, you know, they're kind of even surprised about it, you know.
Oh.
So yeah, I think that's a good thing about board games. Yeah, I mean, hiking, I'm not really sure if I have anything else to say on that, but yeah.
I said, like, go do it.
Yeah,
but
no, it's a good time. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well, thanks so much, Chris, and, you know, hopefully we can talk about more stuff, you know, soon, or whenever you're available, whoever, or who knows when that'll be.
Yeah.
You know, but, yeah, no, thanks so much for covering, you know, board games and hiking. Not a lot of hikers I know personally. But board gaming, I think it's like, you know, amongst my own peers, it's always like a thing. Like, hey, board game night. And it's like, okay, let's talk more about board games, right? Okay.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. Thanks so much, and yeah, thanks for listening.